Well, we're going to roll right into this. So, first of all, thank you for coming. We're going to have an excellent discussion about ATSC 3 or 3.0.
Hey, they're equivalent.
Yeah, okay. All right. No, super excited. Here to my right, I guess your left, is Eric Black, CTO and General Manager of Media for Edgio.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And next to Eric is Kevin. And Kevin Cotlove is Chief Digital Officer at Sinclair. So, yeah. So, let's roll right into this. As I was thinking about our discussion, and we were doing some planning about what we want to talk about. From my perspective, ATSC 3 is, it's far more than just an evolution of, the ATSC standard. It's really next-gen broadcast. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we call it NextGen, we call it ATSC 3 in the formal spec. One of the great things about that specification and why we're here and why we've partnered with Edgio on what we're talking about today is it's not just for traditional television broadcast. It can certainly do that and has a lot of benefits, but the beauty of that specification is that it is malleable. We can use portions of that spectrum to move data, and that data can be linear video, it can be files, but it can also be files that represent traditional IP-delivered video formats like DASH and HLS. And so over the spectrum, we can deliver a portion of high-resolution rays for, without getting too technical, something like a DASH feed, right? And on the receiver side, on a television set, we've partnered with Sony to do this too, the receiver can tune in and pull those down as data, and they get represented just like local files, like anything else coming off a CDN. And so we have this nice meshing of traditional IP technology and over-the-air technology to deliver data packets that can represent something like 4K video. And so when you have a television and you're in the footprint of a broadcast tower, we can offload from the CDN for high-demand events or anything else for that matter.
That is cool. And of course, that's why you're sitting up here, right?
That's interesting, because I'm a CDN, so you would think what he's saying might be taboo to me.
Yeah, so why are you up here?
Because, I think as an industry, we've got a challenge. And we're excited to partner with Sinclair on what is the future of not just video, but IP distribution. Unicast and the model that we're delivering now has been working great. We're seeing some phenomenal results. More people are cutting the cord, streaming. Yeah. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you need enough aggregate bandwidth to deliver to your customers. And, we're starting to see these, large hyperscale events. And, frankly, is there enough infrastructure as you start to get down to a localized level to deliver against that? I think that's what we're most excited about for this, which is, when you're in Seattle and the Seahawks are playing, you're going to...
When the Seahawks are winning.
That's right.
Winning. And they're playing anyway.
Yeah.
So they draw a crowd, but it's going to draw an audience. And frankly, making sure that ultimately consumers are getting high-quality video at scale, but frankly, in different distribution methodologies, that has to be the future. We're riding on internet backbone that has been around for a real long time, and we need to evolve.
What is my question is, what is the planning that's required to adopt ATSC 3 and maybe you can answer the question from both sides, from a pure OTT streaming perspective, and then from maybe a broadcaster.
Sure.
What's involved in that? I mean, Sinclair,
we're a broadcaster
operate
too.
over the air,
So the beauty of what we've announced with Edgio and part of Broadspan, which we rolled out yesterday, is that all of those orchestration layers are taken care of. So the provisioning of the broadcast spectrum and sort of tower space in different geographies, the coordination and correlation with the CDN delivery, and there's a software stack that can sit in traditional OTT applications that helps, pull all the files down with the tuner and everything. There is a technical talk tomorrow for those that are interested in the low-level details. But the nice thing about this partnership is that all of that is abstracted away from people who want to produce and deliver content. So if you have a workflow today that is traditional CDN delivery, you don't really have to change your workflow at all. You can get the benefits of offloading, say, 4K chunks from your video delivery manifest to OTA, and there's no regression because the client devices still treat the CDN the way that they did previously, and everything continues to work smoothly. But that is the beauty of this partnership, is that it is a managed service through Broadspan and through Edgio, and it's relatively turnkey.
So if I'm using Edgio, I could continue to publish files to Edgio, and effectively, I can then deliver to an ATSC 3 television, or device,
or a device. So
and we'll talk later about the device support side.
Yeah. That application, if you're watching a sort of high demand streaming event with lots of concurrency and things like that, that application can behave the same way that it always did, with a CDN delivery. And if it's within the footprint of a broadcast tower, it doesn't even have to be a user who normally watches over-the-air television. We just take advantage of that reach and that concurrency of one-to-many capability to get those high-resolution data files out to that device using the ATSC 3 tuner as a data receiver.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. Well, that's good because, I think there's a lot of new standards, new technologies in our industry. They're great. They have to be deployed.
Yeah.
It's that have to be deployed, right? That often, gets a little...
Well, it has to be easy too, right? I mean, from a broadcaster perspective, if we're going to require 20 new client applications, different methodologies and codecs, it's getting too complicated. I mean, the beauty of what we put together is from an application perspective, it's pretty seamless, to be quite honest with you. It's very lightweight to integrate. But from an end user perspective, you legitimately wouldn't know the difference where the traffic was coming from. I think that's what's really exciting about it.
Yeah, it still gets treated just like any other video stream if you're using it for video. And it doesn't have to be something that's used by broadcasters, right? We talk about it in the context of using that spectrum, but non-broadcasting content delivery companies can utilize that spectrum for events on a one-off or a sustained basis, and it opens up that opportunity to utilize that one-to-many reach and that reliability or the offload capability to companies that may never have thought about utilizing broadcasting that way.
Yeah, interesting. Software updates can even be delivered over...
This is a big thing. I mean, ultimately operating a CDN, when you have these software updates,
you deliver a lot of software
I'll
updates.
do a lot of them, and frankly, sometimes they come inconveniently timed against a major broadcast.
Of course.
Opening up more capacity is going to be key, but at the end of the day, I mean, when you're talking about these game patches, I mean, they're not getting smaller; they're getting larger. This type of thought process, and frankly, I think reimagining the model is quite critical to our industry.
Yeah.
My son loves playing Fortnite. If he could get his update faster than his friends, he would probably be very happy about it. And Eric's right. Those one-to-many updates, they can go at any hour of the day, and they can be treated just like any other file, even though they're being delivered over RF instead of traditional CDN.
Cool. Do you have any recent case studies or examples of events that have been delivered with ATSC 3?
Well, there's lots of events that get delivered over ATSC 3 with traditional television broadcast standards, and those happen every day. There's a ton of people who view over-the-air sports and everything else, as well as all the other content from companies like Sinclair and other broadcasters. This technology that we've announced today and yesterday is new, and we're really excited to bring that to market. We have some tests and POCs and demos happening here at the show that folks can take a look at and see that with some real world content.
Yeah, cool. So devices and, the roadmap, we all understand that there's it takes time to get hardware out into the market. So maybe you can give us a profile of kind of where we at today, just at a high level, like, are there TV sets in the market, game consoles, et cetera? And then what's that progression going to look like?
Yeah. I think we see a lot of opportunity there. We have been testing in partnership with Sony on the handoff for files and streaming. And the beauty of the partnership and the specification here is that it is all stuff that is core to the ATSC 3 standard. We're not doing anything new in that regard. So theoretically, devices with an ATSC 3 tuner might just need a software update or things of that nature to be able to take advantage of this capability. And so we're really looking forward to expanding in that regard. But everything that we're talking about, whether it's offloading 4K content to the OTA delivery or even file delivery and software updates, all of that works and takes advantage of the ATSC 3 spec as it exists today.
Yeah, and it doesn't, generic, it's device, right? So, we don't want to be specific, but when you start to look at the different industries this could touch, we've been talking a lot about video. It's a great application for it. Software download, automotive. This can touch a lot of different areas of everything that has very large payload that's using IP, which is virtually everything at this point.
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah. And those concentrated bodies of users and populations are generally seen within the footprint of that broadcast ecosystem, and so there's a nice correlation of that density of delivery with the broadcast footprint.
Yeah. So I know there's a technical panel tomorrow, and so anybody who really wants to get into more technology side, go see Kevin and he'll tell you where and when that is. But it's relevant. Are there any codec limitations, or are all codecs supported? Form UHD?
Sure. So there's no codec limitations because theoretically anything that you can deliver as data over a traditional CDN, you can deliver and represent as files over the IP chain from ATSC 3. So you might have traditional video formats like H.264, HEVC, things of that nature, but you're not limited by that. If you want to send out a custom binary file for patches and devices or game updates, any file format that can be represented over a CDN can be delivered in the same fashion over the ATSC 3 spectrum.
I think I'd add, that's why we were really excited about the partnership with Sinclair and Edgio, because being a traditional CDN and the orchestration layer, which we've kind of touched on, is so critical to how you're delivering, whether it's video, whether it's large file updates, game patches, things of that nature, making that seamless, and ultimately, how do we leverage both of our infrastructure and vast experience in this space? It's going to be critical to the future of this space. So the orchestration piece shouldn't go unnoticed because there's a little bit of plumbing behind this.
Yeah.
But that piece is frankly quite seamless from an end user perspective.
And if you're a client, we abstract that complexity away, thankfully.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're in the business of delivering files, your client applications in whatever format they may take can still see those files delivered, right, in the same way from a software perspective. They might just be receiving them over a mix of CDN or OTA. When they land on the client application, though, at the end of the day, regardless of which path they take, and it might be mixed, right, for a single user, the software doesn't have to be changed in how it behaves with that data.
So if you think of a CDN space specific to us, the ability to offer our customers delivery methodologies that's not just IP-based in a traditional sense as it is today, but through mixed model approaches, different pricing schemas, which frankly the market's looking for, that's where it gets really exciting.
Well, I want to talk about the business side of it because, clearly there's a shift that's going on in the market. Dan, in his opening keynote talked about, everything is a P&L and it's all cost, and it doesn't matter how good or where someone is at in their business. Cost is everything. What kind of business models, does this even open up? And again, let's answer from maybe kind of two sides. Maybe take the CDN perspective, and then the content owner, the publisher, the streaming platform. So
yeah, I could start. It's tricky. The CDN business, you're ultimately building out for peaks. Peak could be, and we'll stay in the sports realm here. Could be the Super Bowl. Could be the.
You know well.
I do, or it could be the Peacock exclusive game that they had during Wild Card. You're building up for these massive peaks, and they continue to grow year over year. The challenge is for an infrastructure provider, what do you do with all that capacity when that game's not going on?
Right.
It's a massive cost because we also have a P&L as well.
Yeah, of course.
This changes, I think, a lot of how we look at the market in terms of how do we start approaching things not on a per gig throughput cost, but flat rate pricing, because the way the spectrum works is frankly more in a multicast model. How do we deliver to many users in a geography, but continue to give the personalization of things like SSAI, DAI, how do we start to do that in mixed mode models, where we can actually normalize pricing? So I think it's going to be really attractive from not just a broadcaster's perspective, but a consumer perspective as well.
Okay, I want to jump on something you just said that we're going to come back to. So, quote, traditional broadcast delivered by ATSC 3, but with dynamic ad insertion.
Exactly right.
Everybody get that? That's pretty cool. That's cool.
And I think on the content publisher side, everyone's always looking for reliability, right? In addition to that cost and ROI. Part of the reason we don't see as much 4K delivery in everything is certainly cost, both in encoding and delivery. But if customers now have an opportunity to incur only the encoding cost and the delivery cost is flat rate and one-to-many, particularly for those densely populated areas, that can drastically change the picture because the revenue still goes up with all those users if it's ad-supported or direct-to-consumer subscriptions, but your cost is flat for a lot of that delivery. And you also have an opportunity to look at sort of peaks and valleys in the day, right? Again, that spectrum allocation is something that can be done dynamically, both within a single geography and across multiple geographies. So if somebody needs to deliver a lot of high data use updates at 2 in.the morning, that might be a different price than, and they get a reduced cost to that data delivery.
So from a end consumer, a viewer perspective, in an earlier session today, CDN 77 presented some data about how much 4K, and this is widely out there. So, and I'm not going to ask you to comment, or you can if you want, but, and I think roughly about 4% of their streams delivered are 4K. And, I've seen some other numbers that are similar. Does this open up an opportunity? And you can comment, completely outside of Sinclair, but does it open up an opportunity to provide more 4K for those viewers that want to pay for it? Or maybe there's special events that are like 4K events, or, in other words, where you have the opportunity to pay for the experience that you want.
Yeah, I think the cost to the consumer would depend on the particular, publisher or things of that nature.
It's their strategy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to it.
We certainly hope that this makes it more reliable and easier to do that for the content creators, because you often don't know what the reliability of all those endpoint connections are, right? Someone's complaining on social media because the stream is buffering. It may have nothing to do with your origin infrastructure. It may be, poor Wi-Fi in that local environment. If we have a structure, though, one of the things that broadcast is really great at is moving data very reliably to a lot of people, right? And if without that user even knowing or having to do anything, that device can, get with a surety that 4K video stream, if it's video, they're going to have a better experience. We all know that customer satisfaction matters a lot in any content medium, right?
In the world of Twitter.
Right, and if we can do that very reliably, and the beauty of the CDN integration with Edgio here is that even if they are not in that broadcast footprint, their experience doesn't change. Or if they move in and out of it, if they're in the gray zone, right? Everything still behaves like a traditional sort of laddered video experience.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me to hear, and of course I totally get it, for those of us, and I've spent really all my time in the OTT side, and we like to live in but it's the internet, and you can, and you can stream at, 20 megabits, it's no problem. But a broadcaster, perspective is like, maybe you can, maybe you can't, and, the consumer shouldn't have to care about why they're getting a bad experience,
Right.
They just want an experience,
This
that's
partnership
reliable, that's consistent.
should make that experience for the consumers even better and more seamless. It should
exactly.
reduce a level of experience, complexity, and a better opportunity for all consumers to get a better video experience if it's video, more reliable or quicker data experience if it's a patch or a device kind of thing. And that's what everybody's looking for from CDNs as well, right?
It's a cost model too. I mean, for the publishers, certainly for the consumers, you're seeing a lot of direct-to-consumer providers that are right now charging a higher fee for 4K content. And that's reasonable because those are bigger files. It costs them more to deliver that. In this new paradigm, as we start to look at the future, maybe it doesn't have to. Maybe we can get that reliability and resiliency working together in different distribution models so it doesn't have to cost consumers more.
It's good. I love it. I would like to reduce some of my OTT bills.
All of us.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think we completed the device discussion because I would be curious. So right now it's a partnership with Sony. Connected televisions completely makes sense, of course. I assume that you're probably working with and talking to all of the major vendors. But what about game consoles? What about media players? What about my in-car infotainment system? That seems obvious, but
yeah, I mean the opportunity is anything that has an ATSC 3 receiver in it. And I think, everybody's heard at this conference for many years and looked at that technology, those tiny little chips can go anywhere theoretically. And after that, it's the software and the delivery chain.
Sure.
So there's nothing that limits this to consumer entertainment devices in a living room. It can certainly be that, and we talk about that as an industry a lot, but it can be literally anything with that chip in it. Right? Those are all interesting conversations that we're excited to explore. Yeah.
What would you say to anybody who's sitting out here and maybe has the ability to influence, getting a chip in a device? Like, what's the elevator pitch?
Happy to make myself available.
Yeah.
I think this is what we've been talking about through the panel here is that, as Eric mentioned, it can dramatically shift the cost picture of delivery, particularly for those high concurrency events. And that should open up a new market, not just of potential customers. If you have a more highly reliable device, or if you have a device that only has access to that, potentially if it has that feature, and it also completely changes the cost picture of delivery in various circumstances. Right? So if you have an ecosystem where your customers do or don't decide to work with you based on delivery costs or customer experience, this partnership has the ability to drastically impact all of those calculations that your finance people are running for you every day.
Yeah, I'll take the opposite side because I've been talking about cost so much. I'll go on the reliability side because, as we continue to see growth in direct-to-consumer and IP streaming, frankly, the resiliency and reliability, making sure that you don't have hotspots when the Seahawks are in fact playing, that in Seattle you have high quality service. The fact of the matter is it's going to come down to who is your ISP, how much capacity and peering capacity do we have as a CDN with them to make sure that we can get those 4K bits through.
Yeah.
This changes that whole world, and so that's why we're so excited about doing this.
Yeah, if you can go to market and say it doesn't matter what's happening with that consumer's internet connection, that's a great pitch.
Are you able to characterize even just a ballpark, like how much is an ATSC receiver?
The actual tuner chips can be very inexpensive, particularly at scale. I mean, right out there on the floor this week and at lots of similar trade shows before, more and more consumer entertainment devices have those tuner chips in them. And we look forward to that continuing to expand.
And the point is, these are not high-end devices. That's
they can be. I mean,
they can be, but they don't have to be.
They don't have to be, yeah. There's very inexpensive television sets that have ATSC 3 tuners in them already. This is not just a high-end market opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah, awesome. Well, good. Well, I think we're kind of right up against time. I know there's probably questions. We're running a little bit late, so you can come grab Kevin or Eric after. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for listening.